Hey guys, welcome back to the Joe Silverback Show. I'm your host, Joe Bunton, and today we're going to talk about choice and decision making, and we're going to talk a little bit about evolutionary biology and evolutionary consciousness. So as I try to discuss with you guys repeatedly, life is always about making choices, making decisions. One of the things that my mentor taught me when I was 24 and he was 75 was to answer the question, what are your plans for the next 50 years? I told you before, I argued and I debated and I said what a lot of 24-year-olds say, which is, I don't know what I'm going to be doing for the next 50 minutes, let alone the next 50 hours. And he said, well, you should know. And I'm saying that to each and every one of you and to myself. We should know, we should always know. And to know who I am, what I want, where I'm going is the first, it's the first operation towards success. Okay, choice, decision making, make key decisions, don't be afraid of them, and then go after whatever they reveal the path is to get to those decisions, that to reach the end goal. Okay, evolutionary consciousness, why the silverback? I've discussed this a lot, and now I'm going to reveal something that's going to do what I try to avoid, which is to make me the target of ridicule by putting myself in a very, very vulnerable position. But you don't get anywhere without taking risk. So the risk that I have here is that the reward I'm going to gain is respect from my fellow listeners, in that it's really a deep thought that I'm going to present to you, which is that we believe ourselves. We believe that we know something. Today we believe that, going to Mars is a good thing. Yesterday we believed that going to the moon was a good thing. If we didn't have that belief, we would never take the risk and the chance to go after something. Today we believe that, psychology is God. We believe that we are God, and we believe that, as we become so smart and we put our smartness into technology and we have technology reflected back to us, pretty soon we're looking at ourselves every second of every day and thinking, wow, I'm really smart. Wow, I'm really cool. Wow, this is really cool. Ba-dang. So that's okay. There's a certain kind of ego evolution that we need to get us up out of bed and get us driven towards something. Now, there does come to a certain point where we have to really start looking closely at history to make sense of the present and make sense of the future. We need to look at history to make sense of the present and make sense of where we're going in the future. If we don't, to the extent that we don't pay attention to history, we just do what all the wisdom statements have said in the past, which is repeat the same old dumb mistakes. So we can talk about, this pending recession that's coming. We can talk about the stock market that's going to drop again. And we could say, wow, man, if you're smart and you're wise, you just wait till it crashes and then you buy when things are low. We're not that smart. We just keep repeating the same things over and over again. And most of us buy when things are high and then sell when things are low, and we lose a lot. So, having said this, I want to challenge some assumptions and some beliefs, because until you challenge assumptions and beliefs, you don't know what is possible. One of the things that has been challenged recently is El Capitan in Yosemite. Somebody climbed it without ropes in less than 4 hours, without ropes. He mapped it out for 10 years. He studied every single day. He mapped that thing out, and he just broke through some consciousness barrier. Now, the reason why I'm talking about that is that before he did that, nobody could believe that that was possible. Before we went to the moon, nobody believed that that was possible. Okay? There was a time when we did believe that there was no intelligence in any other form of life but ourselves. And I'm going to challenge that, because what I'm going to say is that we have, in our trajectory of Homo sapiens, looked at ourselves as this great, vast, godlike intelligence, right? God created us in his image and likeness. We only told that story because we believed that we were godlike more than anybody else. Now, what if we told another story, that we're just this fluke, this chance, this happenstance, and we are this destructive, entity that destroys everything in our path? And that's also part of our truth. We have destroyed everything in our path. So, in terms of evolutionary biology and evolutionary history, Homo sapiens has become this incredible mammal, this incredible primate that has knocked out all other mammals and all other primates, and is on the way to knocking out a lot of other living organisms that may be to his detriment. And who knows whatever the outcome of that detriment is. Man is constantly creating all kinds of things that create detriment, and then he's trying to find solutions out of his own problems and his own mazes. So he creates the maze, etc. Here's what I want to propose to you, because you ask me all the time to define the Silverback Principle. So if guys, historians and natural historians like Yuval Harari are correct, that we have been on this continual trajectory of evolution since the Big Bang and the soup in the ocean, and one-celled organisms splitting into multicellular organisms, and those multicellular organisms going on to some in the sea, some on the land, and then from the land some living in the water and on the land, and then some flying, and some birds, reptiles, fish, insects, becoming more and more complex organisms, and into mammals and primates and man. And then where do we go from man? So if this trajectory is correct, right? And if man is the only one who has any intelligence and any consciousness to make choices to direct his trajectory, like we think we are doing now, which is very, very funny. We believe that we are directing our trajectory for the first time. I mean, E.O. Wilson, whom I deeply, deeply respect, is saying that for the first time in evolutionary history, man is making the decision to inject his intelligence into computers that can become more intelligent than man, and then this intelligence can then possibly create better and better things for mankind. But let's not forget the seed in the hair. Let's not forget the seed on the wind. Let's not forget how seeds are transported from the fur of rats, from squirrels, dogs, cats, humans eating fruit and seeds. Let's not forget the parasitic relationship between different organisms hitchhiking and taking a ride on its host. So who really is the parasite, and who really is the intelligence, the machine or the man? I mean, and how are they becoming, what is that? How is that different than the man and the dog? I'm not giving any answers here, just presenting a question. I'm being like Yuval Harari. I just present the questions. I don't necessarily tell you what the answers are, which is a sign of wisdom, right? I mean, we got to be able to look more deeply at the questions. So if Harari's right that we have just been creating all kinds of stories, science is a story too. Technology is a story too. These are just stories that are coming out of this consciousness and this mind that we think is so fantastic, which is from human beings. Now, let's look at that evolutionary trajectory again. We know that there was a time when Homo erectus and Neanderthal, and forget some of the others, the other homos who were in around at the same time. Nobody knows the exact answer to this, but there was this, going from the chimp and the orang and the gorilla to the Homo sapien, and that was a huge branching off. And then there was a variety of these homos that ultimately became Homo sapien. Let's assume, I like Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer had a very creative way of looking at our consciousness and our responsibility. And it's so funny because it kind of reminds me of what I hear Jordan Peterson saying, which is that, why not just act as if God exists? Isn't that good enough? Because that is difficult as it is. Imagine that God does exist, and how would I behave? Well, Wayne Dyer says, I'm imagining that I was standing beside God and I chose my parents. I chose the family I was going to come through. And I chose all the education, knowledge, wisdom, experience I was going to be gleaning and ahead of time. I made those arrangements. Why not? We don't know anything about our choice, right? I mean, hell, you've got an entire culture in Tibet that sits around praying and waiting for the next incarnation of the Dalai Lama. How does that happen? If he's not having a choice of how he's going to come back through, and they're going to find him and discover him and say, wow, we're going to present you with the red carpet and give you the greatest teachers in the world because we know that you have a special consciousness. Now, let's suppose that as we were branching away from those primates that we evolved from, the chimp, the orangutan, the gorilla, and what am I going to present to you? Let's assume for a minute that silverback made a choice and a decision, and his decision was to stay in the forest and stay in his silverback consciousness and stay connected to the web of life called Gaia, called Mother, called the Matrix, and understand that in that choice he was electing to protect and defend to his death and his honor the sacred matrix and from which he was born. Maybe we need to go back to the silverback and gain from his consciousness. So I've created this story. And stories are oftentimes, Carl Jung with the subconscious and all of this. I mean, we live our lives partly through a dream world and partly through what we call conscious world. But just imagine that there's a man who is connecting back by following back into the jungles of Africa and going to that silverback and learning how to tap into his consciousness. Why? Why would we do that? Why would we go back to this primitive beast that's so stupid? Well, maybe so we could absorb some of that consciousness and number one, do one thing. Be able to have a better web ecosystem sense of protection and defense against for all that sustains and provides life, instead of a carte blanche progress straight ahead and let technology be the God. We keep God in the garden, so to speak, because the garden provides for us. That's number one. Number two, that he doesn't hoard and take more than enough. Three, that he has a ferocity and a fierceness and a fearlessness that allows him to protect and defend his own to the death. And as a result, he has this peaceful, serene existence where he's sure and certain with no doubts and confusion and anxieties about himself. Now, I know. We would much, much rather live with our depressions and our anxieties and our psychotic behaviors and struggle with those things. But let's just stop and think about that. How much time do we think about church, religion, prayer, meditation? How much time do we think about whether we're in tone, in fit, in shape? How much time do we spend at the gym? How much time do we spend with clinical psychologists helping us learn how to be happy in life? Okay. Decision making, creating our own story. Does the silverback have something on us that we need to learn from? And did he make his own choice? And in making his choice, is he more wise than we are? Just presenting a question. There should be nothing that should offend anybody. Namaste.